Hi guys, Rolene Marks or Occupier Barbie or Gingy or whatever you want to call me here, and welcome to today's edition of the Israel Brief. I thought I would leave the window open a little bit so you could see the weather conditions outside. Not so nice. We've had hail, we've had storms. You can't believe what's happening here, which is why I'm all dressed up warm today. First of all, I wanted to thank all of you who are subscribing. And if you want to subscribe for your daily Israel brief, simply click on the subscribe button below. And remember that the Israel brief is proudly brought to you by Lay of the Land. And to check out our original and awesome content, you can visit our website at www.layoftheland.online. That's www.layoftheland.online, and you can like or follow us on Facebook as well, and don't forget to share our content with your friends. And you can find us at Lay of the Land and simply click on like and or follow. So let's have a look at some of the stories making the big news in Israel today, and our first story starts at the United Nations. Now, if you're anything like me, just the mention of the United Nations raises your blood pressure significantly. But it looks like there is a battle of wills being duked out between Israel's ambassador, Danon, and the Palestinian Authority President, Mahmoud Abbas, who we have to congratulate because he is currently serving the 15th year of his four-year term. So what is happening there? Well, basically, President Abbas used his keynote speech at the United Nations to call Israel an obstruction to the cohesive development of all the people in the Middle East. As always, blame Israel. Now, our ambassador to the United Nations, Danon, fired back with his own salvo and accused President Abbas of squandering the budget that the Palestinian Authority receive, a lot of it in foreign aid, to fund terror in pay-for-slay schemes. Now, what is pay-for-slay? Pay-for-slay is the funding of terrorists and their families for committing acts of terror against Israelis. Now, if terrorists are killed during these attacks, then it's their families who receive a monthly stipend. But if they're locked in prison or survive, they receive a monthly stipend. So this economy of terror is propagated more and more. And all that it does is it derails any hope for peace between the two people. Now, according to the Washington Post in 2017, about $160 million was spent in pay-to-slay schemes. In fact, about 13,000 beneficiaries received huge chunks of that $160 million. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, $160 million could be better spent on education for peace, building schools, building hospitals, investing in programs that promote cooperation, and in building infrastructure that is desperately needed. But that is just me. So our next tour in the headlines takes us to Florida, where the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, has called for sanctions against Airbnb. And he says that unless it reverses what he calls their discriminatory decision, which bars listings in the West Bank, he will start instituting some kind of state sanctions. And he goes on to say that we have a moral obligation to oppose anything that targets specifically Jews. And Airbnb, in their specifically targeting Jews in the West Bank, is transgressing basically the anti-BDS laws or the anti-boycott laws in the United States, as well as anti-discrimination laws in Israel, which prevents people from being discriminated against based on where they live. Now, Airbnb have faced a lot of criticism because they've singled out this area at the expense of other conflict zones around the world where you can hire a B&B, places like the Ukraine or Russia or many, many other countries where there are gross human rights violations. But the governor has said that we can either do two types of sanctions. The one is that the state can suspend any use of Airbnbs for state travel, or they can bar the state pension fund from investing in Airbnb. So it looks like unless Airbnb gets its act together, they will be roundly boycotted. And our last tour, which takes us to Malaysia, is an update on the situation I know a lot of you are following, which is the barring of Israel's Paralympic swimming team from qualifiers for the Tokyo Paralympics. As you can imagine, this is not in the spirit of the Olympic Games. It is not in the spirit of sportsmanship. But the Malaysian foreign minister said today that the government will not budge on barring Israel from participating in these events. In fact, they will roundly ban Israelis from participating in any events in Malaysia. And the president of Malaysia is known to be an anti-Semite. He has said that Jews are devils, they have hooked noses. He also has trotted out those ugly stereotypes. And, one would hope that in the spirit of good sportsmanship, that sports transcends politics and our swimmers are allowed to compete. So that's it today for today's edition of the Israel Brief. I'm going to take cover from the storm, but a reminder once again to like us on Facebook, visit our awesome website at www.layoftheland.online for that amazing content, and click on the subscribe button below to receive your daily edition of the Israel Brief, and don't forget to share it with your friends. So shalom from me, from a freezing cold Modi'in.